You were talking about his obsession. There's a really good line in your book about, he says to you, if I was ready to go and asked you to shoot me and nobody would know,
Right.
would you do it if I gave you $5 million?
Right.
Which is a really, really intriguing line and quite sad because it's almost like he's at the end of his tether.
Well, yeah, obviously, I mean, you got to remember he's also reading a lot. I'm reading to him a lot of Oscar Wilde, Deep Profundus. I was reading him from Deep Profundus on the plane back home. I read for an hour and a half just on that. Um, and yes, it was a strange thing to have asked. It was something, and like I said, I would do it, but I wouldn't take your money, But I have to make sure that I wouldn't get caught, I mean, this is like, I mean, when you gonna put a gun in someone's head or small, how do you want to go out? It was a very strange and kind of intimate thing. There are times when I've written about our relationship over the years, and it's very unusual to see a journalist writing about a movie star in such a way. One time he asked me, "Do I trust him with his life?" And I said that's in the book behind you. That I did on Al. And I said, "What are you talking about?" And he says, "Do you trust me with your life?" And I said, "Do you trust me with yours?" And then we start getting into who asked first, and then I mean, strange kind of questions to contemplate, And in the end, yeah, I guess I did. I don't know if I do anymore, but I guess I did. I think he'd want to shoot me now.
You were talking about the different versions. How many versions have you seen?
I see probably 30. I probably saw it 30 or so times. And the first time was 3.5 hours long, or 3 and 4 hours and 45 minutes, which he did at 20th Century Fox, and he catered it. So we saw an hour and a half of the movie. We go out, we have lunch or dinner, and then we go back and see the rest of the movie. I mean, it was that's how long that one was. And I mean, he was just throwing a lot of stuff up, but he was getting Harold Becker, his friend, who's a director. He would bring him in. He would bring in Danny Houston. Different people came, and everybody had an opinion. And that's the problem with Al, is that he will listen to everybody's opinion and take the last one that he heard, the last one. So you could have 20 different things. He'll go, oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah, and then some 14-year-old might come and say, hey Al, I think you should wear those shoes, and he'll wear those shoes. It's, my funny story about that is, I mean, this is I once wrote a speech for him. I wrote his Oscar speech once, which he actually gave, which I was happy to see. But I wrote a lot of his speeches, and he never would remember to do them. And one time at the Golden Globes, I wrote him a nice speech, and I gave it to him. And he goes on and he accepts the award at the Golden Globe, and he doesn't pull out the speech at all. And he starts to ad lib, and he starts to tell a joke. And he doesn't. It's a joke that's not funny because he doesn't know the joke well, and he just throws. And this is in front of millions of people. So I'm going, the next day we go for a walk on the beach, and he says, how did it go? How did I do? I said, not well, Al. I didn't think you did very well at all. He goes, what are you talking about? Everybody's telling me I did great. Everybody. I said, that's because everybody's a sycophant with you. They all tell you what you want to hear. And I'm telling you the truth. You didn't. I said, what was this joke? I said, what was that all about? He goes, oh, he says, I went to the bathroom right before the thing, and I'm sitting, I'm peeing in the stall, and a guy next to me tells me this joke. I thought it was really funny, so I tried it out. That's his typical purpose, Al. I mean, the last guy to talk to him in the bathroom before he's going to get the Golden Globe tells him a joke, and he does it. He's a funny guy.
How long did it take you to write that speech as well?
Well, the speech takes a while because I usually have to go through a lot of versions. I write it, I send it to him. He looks at it and says, change this. I did the same thing. It's in the book. I talk about a speech that he wanted to do in Ireland for the Philosophical Society or whatever in Ireland. And I didn't know I was writing a speech, so I had to get a typewriter or a computer. I'd write the speech, go into his room, he'd read it, make some changes. I'd go back, rewrite it, so it'd go back and forth like that a number of times. So, I mean, for one thing I did for him, there was a book called The Right Word. Marlo Thomas did a book about mentors, teachers who influenced you when you were young. And I did Pacino and Jack Nicholson and David Geffen, Barry Diller, and Ellen DeGeneres. I did those five. And I'd go see them. I would tape what they said, and then I'd go back and I would, give it to them. But with Al, because we're friendly, I gave him what he wrote, what he said, I wrote, and what I wrote. And he says, let's change this. And he would make all these changes. I said, okay. And I'd change it, give it back. 9 changes. 9 times I had to go back over this silly little thing that's about 2 pages long. So, he's a perfectionist, and he's never happy. He's never satisfied. And that's why Salome or Wilde Salome has taken so long, because if it was up to him, it would take him till the end of his life. I mean, he would just keep doing this. It's amazing. The other people just say enough is already enough is enough, but not with Al.
Talking about your book, obviously in there it's detailed about your small acting role. Right. Did Al give you any tips? Did he make you do the Strasburg Method? No. Anything like that?
No, I didn't get a tip from anybody about anything in that movie. I mean, basically, you see me wearing this giant coat that my daughter said to me, "Dad, don't wear that coat because it was cold." I said I liked it, but she was right. I look like I'm humongous in this coat, and I'm in the museum with him, or we're walking around London, and you see me in this big coat, and I'm always eating something, chewing on something, but. There are a couple of scenes in the Wadsworth Theater where I'm talking to him about the play. We're in this balcony talking, and somewhere else I'm talking to him. But I mean, I saw the version where I was actually talking throughout the movie. I mean, I was with him, and with all the things I was saying in the plane and this and that. We had a whole discussion that was in the movie. But Harold Becker kept saying to me, and I'm sure he said it to Al, the movie gets better every time I see it. The less you use of Larry. So I think if I wasn't always there, he would have cut me out completely. But he had no choice, because I was always in these scenes. So no one gave me any acting tips.
He didn't give you a telling off or anything like that when you got it wrong?
No. I mean, the one scene that we kept doing over and over again was the ending. That was important to him. We did this in this Wilshire theater. It's a Wilshire Boulevard screening room. It's a small little theater, holds about 40 people or so. And the scene was where we're looking at the movie, like the final product. And Al is sitting in the front row. I'm sitting right behind him. And then all the other people in the movie, the producer and the editor and the cinematographer and all, they're all sitting in seats behind me, 2 rows behind me. So basically, there's the crew, in this thing. And Al wanted me to, as soon as the movie finishes, he wanted me to lean over and whisper in his ear that it's terrible. He says, just say it doesn't work. So the first time I said to him, Al, it doesn't work, and I whisper that. And then he turns around and shouts at me, what do you want me to do? And he starts screaming. I didn't know he was going to do that, right? I mean, I had no idea what was going to happen next. And I back away. Okay, take 2. I say, this time I said something else. Every time I did a different version of it's terrible. I just kept saying, and I would make him laugh. Sometimes he would laugh. We couldn't do it. And finally he would just get up and say, I know. We got to go back to the desert. That was his thing. He wanted to basically tell everybody in the crew, we got to go back to the desert. We're not finished. Well, the final version that you will see has him in that theater and looking at it, and he says, we got to go back to the desert. But they took out my big line, it doesn't work.
You're talking about the many different versions and the bits that have been cut and everything. How much do you think has been cut from it now? How much is going to appear on a DVD if we ever see more?
Oh, the DVD could have great outtakes. I mean, I'm telling you, there's scenes. There was a scene where we went. I wore the behind you is a Scarface poster. With Al looking. Actually, you have the woman in there, but the normal poster is just Al standing there. Well, I had a silk shirt or a rayon shirt of that poster, and it has the entire script on the shirt, in very tiny, tiny words. So I took that with me because Barry was obsessed also with trying to get Scarface into the movie somehow because everybody loves Scarface. So how do you get Scarface into Oscar Wilde? I don't know. So I said, hey, I got this shirt. When we go to Vegas, I said, I'll wear this shirt and let's see how Al reacts. So Barry loved that idea. So I put on the shirt. I get on the plane. This is a private plane, and Al goes, what the hell are you doing? He can't believe I'm wearing this shirt. And I said, What, you don't like the shirt? So he goes, and so now we're getting a picture of Al looking at me wearing the shirt of him, so, and there's that big white space there. So so I said, sign the shirt, Al. He said, I'm not gonna sign the shirt. I said, sign the shirt. So he does. He signs the front of the shirt, and then he signs. He says, Larry, you're nuts. He writes, and then he signs the back. So we filmed that. That would be a good outtake. I don't know. I don't know if we'll ever see that, but I mean, there was that kind of stuff. There was a scene. One time we were in the Dublin Museum, and we get in this elevator that was gonna, it was sort of a glass cubicle. And the minute we get in the elevator, some kids recognize him, maybe 14-year-old kids, and they started shooting at him, like with like Scarface. Yeah? So Al just started shooting back, make him leave. And I think we might have filmed a little of that because we were in space. I think we got the kids. I don't know if we got Al shooting back, but funny thing, we walked into. Was it Claridge's? I forgot which hotel we went into in London, one of the big horror hotels. And the guy's sitting there playing the piano, right? He's a piano at the bar or whatever. And when they recognized it was Pacino walking in, they started playing the theme to The Godfather. And you're walking into a hotel, and everybody's heads are turning. It was crazy.
I've just got one more question for you, Larry. And there's an Oscar Wilde famous quote that reads, "Friendship is far more tragic than love. It lasts longer." Now, would Al and Oscar have been friends if they were around at the same time, do you think?
Well, I think Al would have loved to have been friends with Oscar because Al, he loves being around people like Robin Williams, people who are very sharp-witted. Um, and I think Oscar might have been fascinated with Al up to a point, and then he would have got bored with him. Yeah, it's true because Oscar Wilde, he was very. I mean, you look at Oscar Wilde, and Truman Capote. I would have loved to have seen in a room together. I mean, that would have been like, wow, that would have been terrific because but you have to be quick with Oscar, or maybe you did. Maybe it was like, maybe Oscar and Mark Twain would have really been an amazing couple. But when you are as quick-witted as Oscar Wilde was. Yeah, I guess you don't need anybody else to be as quick-witted with you, but it's a good challenge if you are, because then you could really sort of test, your ability of how fast your mind works. And I think Robin Williams would have been unbelievable with Oscar Wilde because he's got that kind of a mind. Al, I think, would have just, Al would have played his harmonica a little bit, and just like entertained him. He would have, taken him for dinner. And I think he just would have been totally entertained with Oscar Wilde. But after a while, I think you want something back. Maybe he would have put Oscar in his movies.
So we're actually looking at a table now. So Capote, Robin Williams, Pacino. We're getting a table now for dinner rather than just two of them.
Right. And yeah, and maybe you put James Joyce in there for the hell of it.
And obviously Al's a big Shakespeare fan as well, so maybe Shakespeare as well.
Shakespeare belongs. Al loves Shakespeare. I mean, he loves Eugene O'Neill. He loves Shakespeare. He loves David Mamet and Brecht, Bertolt Brecht. He loves him. So Al. I will say this about Al. I mean, he turned me on to so much of the poetry of the word, of how of the spoken word. And I used to love throwing out, I'd say Twelfth Night, or I'd say Hamlet or whatever. I could throw out any Shakespeare play, and he would have now it was the winter of our discontent. He would do, the Richard III. I mean, he would just do that stuff, and not just one or two lines. He would do it on. He'd keep going on and on. And it was, we'd be driving in a car, and that would be our car game. I would just throw out a name of a play, and he would just get into the, doing it stuff. And if he didn't know it, he would do it in Italian because he doesn't speak Italian very well. And he would just do, and he would just do it, and it sounded right. He can make you think he knows all these languages, Spanish. He's funny. He does mock languages. Maybe he would have entertained Oscar Wilde in the end, after all.
Great, many thanks for that, Larry. It's been fantastic.
Okay, good. I hope you enjoy the movie, and I'd love to hear what you think. I mean, it'd be interesting. So get back in touch.